All right, here we go. A little Bleav in Chargers live on YouTube as we're excited to be with you. I know it's been a little inconsistent, but hey, it's the offseason. The offseason's inconsistent. What is
Exactly.
consistent, low? OTAs yesterday. Was out at the Bolt, had a chance to get your feet on the grass, get a little bit of sun on the face, load up on the Blue Iguana sunscreen so this fine, fair skin of mine doesn't get too red and lobstery. Maybe see a little bit of a hot spot, but it was fun to be out there. And I'll tell you, one of the great encouraging signs, and we talked about this last week with phase 2, everyone's there. There's really only one person missing, and it's understandable. It's Rashawn Slater, who's up for that big money extension, and it has not happened yet. So first OTA that he has ever missed. He's always been at every voluntary portion of the offseason. So I guess just to kind of get that out of the way, that's really the only notable, well, not just the only notable absence. There were 91 guys there. So It was the only absence. Other than that, Herbert's out there slinging it around, Khalil Mack, all those dudes, Derwin James, all the leaders that you want to see out there were out there.
Yeah. How does that work? Money, it's 100, is it 99? How many can you bring to training camp? Is it 99 or is it 100? Is it 90?
I think it's 90 is what it's supposed to be. But if you have guys that are injured, you've got Cam Hart, who had that shoulder surgery after he injured his labrum against the Texans. You had Luke Grimm off on the side working out. Dan Henley also, I believe it was a shoulder, had that shoulder surgery. So I think when you have guys that are injured, it gives you a little bit of a leeway, but 90 is the number. And then, of course, before we used to have those cut down days, as you know, and they would tier it. And thankfully, someone came to their senses and they were like, why are we doing that? Let's just make one cut down to 53 so more guys have an opportunity and a longer window, and runway to try to show their stuff and make a case for being part of the team.
Yeah, I think that's good that you do that. You give guys a chance. Also, you get guys resting and get guys healthier. Guys that you're going to need them in the season. It gives them opportunity also to not put so much stress, especially in training camp, on their bodies. When you think about a guy like Slater and you think about what he brought and what he brings to the Chargers, what he brings to this league, I mean, this guy's an elite premier tackle. What's been your thought process of just holdouts, and not just him, just in general from football since I played it, since back in the day? It doesn't matter. Guys always say, look, what is the biggest reason, in your opinion, what you've seen outside looking in, why guys hold out? Why is it good? Why is it bad? What say you about the whole process?
Well, if you look at all of these big money deals, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, is the number's the number. Like, Rashawn's going to get his money. You're not getting a discount for an all-pro left tackle. It's just not happening. It's not realistic to think that, unless there's a medical issue and there's something degenerative in there that we're not familiar with. But outside of that, you're getting your between 28 and 30 whatever million bucks. Like, that's, and so I think what it is, look, there are guys that rep themselves, and I think the Shedeur Sanders situation is an example of where that can hurt you. I remember Russell Okun, and I love talking to Russell. He was a weird kind of guy. I shouldn't say weird. He was just an odd guy and a very unique, eclectic guy. And he repped himself, and he was, God, man, that guy would preach about Bitcoin nonstop. He was just Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. So I can only imagine how much money he's got now, because I'm talking 7-8 years ago, he and I are having this Bitcoin conversation. Wow. And so it worked out for him, right? He doesn't have to pay his agent fee. He's a left tackle. They're going to make their money, and it was fine. But like, when you get into a situation that Shedeur has, and I'm getting somewhere, I promise everybody. You need that agent to call these people that like, hey man, why is my guy sliding? What do you need to hear? He's not a diva. He's coming in ready to work. Take him in the 3rd round. He's a top 50 player in this draft. Don't be worried about Dion. He's already told me he's fine. Like, that's what you need your agent for. So in the case of Slater, as one of my absolute favorite guys on the team, just a great dude. And I'm sure it's just his agent saying, hey man, like, I know you want to get out there and I know you're ready to go, but that's just not how this works, man. This is a deal that affects every other player in the league. And this is where your position in the players union comes in to effect. So the next guys that come up have the right number. And just like Trent Williams did for Tristan Wirfs, and Tristan Wirfs did for Penei Sewell, you're going to do for, Christian Darrisaw, you're going to do for Joe Alt. This contract is going to help your guy Joe Alt out. So that's why we've got to get it right. And if you just look at the history of the Chargers, it's no different. Bosa was a July signing. Derwin was an August signing. Herbert was a July signing. It just takes, when you're talking about this much money, it takes a second.
And when you're $1 million or $2 million off, okay, I understand money that you're saying, hey, look, when it's just this on the line, the future, people are going to look at your agent saying, hey, look, I don't want people to think that I screwed this up. So I want to make sure that I'm putting max in it. So both parties, the player want to make sure that he's doing. But when you already know what the end road is, why do you think it takes so long? It's like, okay, do I want this guy to hell out this long when I know I want the continuity? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to get through and kind of you hear me like, God, we got to do this because of this. This is the reason. We know we're going to sign this guy. But, these 2 months where you have June, July, you know what I mean? And before training camp. And then August, the training camp starts, July, August, training camp starts, and you still might not have him in. So what do you think is there a pro behind it? Because
everybody's got to win.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's the thing is, and where everybody wins? Bet online. That's where everybody wins. Okay?
Nice.
The world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing. NBA, NHL playoffs. All the Knicks fans are super sad right now, including my daughter, who's lived in New York for a couple of years, but has adopted the Knicks now. So I had to talk her. Hey, people come back from a 3-1 hole. It happens. Does it happen a lot? No, almost never. But hey, what the heck? BetOnline's got more ways to stay in on the action. Latest odds, news, scores, live in-game betting while the games are being played. So you see something that maybe you picked up on, get after it. It's the largest selection of odds on everything. Like we said, baseball, MLB, NBA, NHL, UFC. They've got it all. The best online source for your sports wagering info. And remember, in between games, get over to that BetOnline casino, the top Vegas-style games, poker, live casino, BetOnline. The game starts here. Quickly, before I get into that whole thing, let's see. Autism Dad Louie, appreciate you. Love the blue heart. Let's go. We are the Storm, Super Hawaiian 44. Yee! And money looks sleepy, says Benny. No, I'm actually not sleepy. I'm just fresh out of the water.
Fresh out of the water.
So that's why this looks ridiculous. And I'm trying to, I don't even know what the heck it is. But
they don't understand. You got the surfer look right now. You just got out of the water. You went out there, got your exercise in, and
try to get it out of the way so it's not too distracting. But yeah, so everyone's got to win, right? I think if I'm right, I think Rashawn's agent's name is Pat. I think that's who it is. So Pat's got to win, and the Chargers have to win. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Hey, how can we pay you here and give you more bonus there and give you guarantees here and give you a little roster bonus and performance bonus and all pro and Super Bowl and, and it's just getting all that stuff. It's kind of getting all that stuff squared away. So I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. You think about Derwin and his agent, David Muguleta, and, he wants to have the largest safety contract ever. And the Chargers want to make sure, like, okay, we're willing to do that. We recognize that's how important you are to us, but we're not giving you everything. Like we're going to get a little bit of a win here. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. But, I think as I was out there watching, it was the way it lined up low is what you would expect. Right. So it was weird because no Slater. So in his place, it was Sawyer with the first team, along with, Joe Alt, Mekhi Becton. And then center left guard was Bradley Bozeman. And Zion was kind of working off to the side a little bit. So he was working on snaps. He did a couple snaps to Justin. Now he did get dropped in there, and it was that line with Sawyer in place of Slater. And I think that's probably the favorite. I would be really surprised. Andre James was your second team center. So they weren't putting Zion in with that group. It was Andre James, the free agent they signed from the Raiders, who, started 60 straight games at center for them. And that's kind of how it shook out. You had Branson Taylor out there. I know people are always excited about the draft picks. You had Savion. What's his last name? Darn it. Let me get to the numerical side here. I got the roster, which is like in 3-point font. But thankfully, I got my new eyes, so I can actually see all this instead of putting the old man glasses on. This dude is huge. Savion Washington, tackle out of Syracuse, 6'9", 340 pounds.
Wow.
So he was out there with that group, but if you're at if I were to say based on whatever I was watching, one, it seems like they're kind of dedicated to seeing if this Zion at center thing is going to work because, like I said, he was getting all these extra reps off to the side as they're trying to kind of get him up to speed there. But otherwise, it was what you would expect. Basically, Mekhi Becton in for Trey, and Trey wasn't working out. So that's, if you're wondering why it was Sawyer at left tackle and not Trey, he was kind of off to the side as well.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I know you were talking about Zion going to get some center and trying to work him in. So if it does work, this is a long-term deal. If it becomes a long-term, so they feel like Zion can be a starting center in the National Football League, slide over the guard and say, okay, we don't. Why is it? In your opinion, is it because the lack of consistency at guard? Because center, is a thinking man's game. You got to make the calls, all the different things. So we understand Zion's a smart guy. What are some of the reasons behind it? People are like, man, okay, I understand Zion. Is this a project? But what's the why behind it?
That's a good question, man. I think it's probably performance-based at guard, right? Is that they're just maybe not quite that, like we've said repeatedly here, he's got all the talent. He's one of the strongest guys on the team. He's incredibly smart. He's incredibly athletic. He's everything that you would have in a first-round guard, right? Those guards don't get taken in the first round a lot. You've got to be special. And Zion was special coming out of Boston College. He just was. I mean, it's the size, athleticism, smarts, all of that. And it's, for whatever reason, just not quite equating to production on the field. And so I think they're probably trying to figure out, will it work better at center? They like big guys. A lot of times centers, what they look like. They're a little bit more squatty sometimes, but the Chargers like big dudes. And so Zion kind of fits in there, just like Mekhi Becton at guard at 6'7", and Trey Pipkins at guard at 6'7", so that's kind of what they're looking for. And I think that's it. I think it's like, can we crack this code? Because it doesn't make sense that it doesn't work. Why does it not work? So, I think that's sort of the only thing I can think of. And because it's seeing it, Lo. You know how important it is. You can be strongest guy in the world. You can be the most athletic guy in the world. But if you don't see it, it just doesn't. The game's too fast. And I think if you watch that Houston game, you just saw they were playing games with Bradley and Zion, and it was just wrecking the offense, completely wrecking the offense. And they were just a tick slow. And so I think maybe the thought is, well, if he's at center and he's making all the calls and he's got to identify it before, then maybe, you can kind of get it to work. But that's the good thing is it's deeper. I feel like it's a little bit like when you have Andre James, who has played 60 straight games at center, when you have Trey Pipkins, who was a starting right tackle for 2 years. I think you feel a little bit better. Like someone goes down and it's like, okay, well, you got Trey, you can drop in there, and you know what the offensive line is. It's serviceable, right? It's not right. It's great to have elite. And when Slater and Alt are out there, it's the best tandem tackle tandem in the league. That's huge. But you got to just be average. Got to be serviceable.
Right. And that's the thing that's tough, is because, like you said, Zion is one of a very physical guard, one of the most strongest guys in the league. And you're like, okay, now you don't have that guy, that's why they said, hey, this offensive guard could be one of the best. But if he's not, you got to look at that and say, okay, we're going to put him at this center situation and saying, is this a guy that can play backup, but he's going to play guard? Is he going to play center? Is it a guy, when you think about if he does not get where they need him to be, is this a guy you say, is he tradable? Because you look at how physical and how strong he is. Is this saying, I don't want to give him the big money as a guard because we're like, God, do I want to make that investment if he's not necessarily the consistency you want? Is he a tradable piece for this year? Or do you say it's no way they trade Zion? But look out, they went and got some guys in free agency. You went and drafted in the line. Your offensive line is going to be solid this year, and you have some good backups. Is it now a movable asset for someone that they think that they may need, that maybe can get the job better, in their opinion?
Yeah, well, they declined his fifth-year option. So that clearly, I think, tells you that, they want to see it, that they want him to prove it. I think you might be better off. It would depend what someone would offer you, right? They may be looking at it as a comp pick. Like, you know what? If he performs well and we decide the number's too big, then we'll get a comp pick, and get maybe a third or a fourth if he's playing really well and we're comfortable moving forward with, some depth pieces or some guys that we might be able to draft and save that money and get an extra third or a fourth or a fifth or whatever it may be. But the way the offensive line works is it ends up being a really big number. And so that's probably why they didn't pick up that fifth-year option, is you're committing to like $17 million. And it's just like, that's just not where we're at with this guy right now. But if he shows it, I'm sure they'd be happy to pay him. We know how important offensive line is to this team, and they didn't invest in it in the draft. Taylor's a 6th round pick and a project, a tackle that had some injury issues and wasn't projected as a draftable player by a handful of outlets, and they're trying to convert him to guard. So that's all they did offensive line wise in the draft. It wasn't like they signaled his replacement by taking a guard in the 2nd or 3rd round. Let's get through some of these comments since we're doing this thing live today. Here we go, Low. Enemy 805. Out there in the 805, little TO action, little Simi Valley. Hold up. What's the one thing we need to do, or maybe Santa Barbara, to get back to playoff and win? I don't think it's one thing. I think it's just do what you did last year, play dominant defense. And I mean, I think, you know what? That's not a good answer. I'll say this, Benny, and then you can throw in your 2 cents here, Lo. I'll let you take it. I think you got to run the ball better. I think that's going to be a key with the way they've built this team, with where they've invested their draft resources, their free agent resources, Mekhi Becton, Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton. Like it suggests that they think they need to run the ball better.
Oh, without a doubt, you have to run the ball better. It starts up front. We saw the Steelers game last year when it's a tight game and you have to throw the ball, and you're playing against another physical type of defense, and defense can get after you. It doesn't have the consistency it needs. You have to be more consistent when it's that type of game. When it's easy to be a soldier when ain't a war going on. But when you have to say, okay, we got to put our big boy pads on. We're playing against the Texan teams that, okay, we've took away the run and we're going to pin our ears back. We're playing against the Steelers team that's going to give you all kinds of different things. You got to get firmer. You have to be, and that's what I saw. I saw at times it can become leaky. So without a doubt, but the running game fixes a lot of those things. But when you can't, because there's going to be games that you can't necessarily still run for whatever reason, you're going to have to be firm up front and give Justin the time that he needs, and for the consistency of everything. The receivers, you had to get better at receivers too, and that's why you went out and made some pick, because McConkey was the only one that can separate. You had Q still inconsistently dropping. So there are some areas that this team has to get better in, because the rest of the league and the rest of the AFC West got better.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll borrow this from my man Popper, and it was a great point. He's like, Herbert's got to stay healthy. He's like you think about that Carolina game in week 2, and Chargers are up 2 scores, and he's, trying, because he's Herbert, he's a competitor. He's trying to extend a play, and he ends up busting that ankle really good, and was in a walking boot. It's like, you got to stay healthy, man. You got to protect your body. Coming off plantar, they kept him out for 3 weeks in training camp, and then you're healthy and it looks great. And, he gets in his own way. He holds on. He wants to make the play, and sometimes just throw it away, man, and stay healthy. And that's something that Shane Day and Greg Roman and Coach Harbaugh are going to have to coach him up to do. Like, you cannot be, having a high ankle sprain in week 2 when we're up 16 points. Like, just dump the ball off, man, and make sure you don't take that shot. So that's the other thing offensively.
Agreed. And for me, it's like, when you back in yesterday year, when you had the Charge, you had Phillip Rivers, and you had Billy Bullock. I don't know if the Chargers are really saying, okay, I need a bona fide backup, a guy. And do you have that guy yet that you say, okay, I know when you think about certain teams around the league, someone goes down, hey, they have a guy that can come in and win you 2-3 games, or hold it down. Yeah, you when several years ago, Niners, you have Sam Darnold back, and and sometimes you got to have a team. You see in Dallas Cowboys, they have a decent backup. You're seeing Carolina went and get Andy Dalton. So sometimes it's like, if something happens, because this is football, this is the National League, and sometimes you're going to have a guy step in. And I don't know if we have that yet on this Charger team.
Well, I feel like they did that last year, Low, when they traded for Heineke. He's a guy who started a full season in Washington. I think he's perfectly capable. He's athletic. He can run around with it. They brought in Trey Lance, for $1 million. So this is the most they've ever had in that category. Remember, with Rivers, it was Kellen Clemens forever, because it was his pal and he was good in the room. And I think, with Easton Stick, great in the room, incredibly smart. He's going to be a
Good.
coach, you know, and that's kind of what it was. But this year, and you saw Heineke get in there for a handful of snaps last year. Yeah, I think Easton Stick and Chase Daniel are not, you know, Taylor Heineke and Trey Lance. That's a different level of backup. So I think it's clear that they've committed some resources to that. Let's see, how was the water? Water's getting warm. It's probably mid to high 60s, so that's real nice. What player do you both think will be playing the most in the regular? Oh, what new player do you think will be playing the most in the regular season? So I guess he's probably going rookie. Would
Both
be
of
my
us going to
guess.
say the same.
Yeah, so go ahead, just say it.
We're both on the same. We know who that is.
It's Omarion Hampton.
It's Marion.
Yeah, it's Omarion Hampton. Let's see. What happened to all these dudes? I'm going to see. I had a bunch up here, and then they all kind of disappeared. Trey Lance has a better chance than Heineke. I don't think so. I think Heineke is. I Bleav he's clearly ahead of him. Julian on the depth chart. Slater misses mandatory minicamp. They have to find him. Yes. If he misses, I Bleav it's going to come out to about $100,000. I think it's a ladder. So you start with like 15 grand, then it jumps to like 35, and then it jumps to like 45. So I think it comes out to just under 100 grand if he misses everything. So, you know, his agent's like, hey, dude, it's 100 grand. To you and me, it's a giant freaking pot of cash.
Yeah, right.
For him, it's like I'm about to sign a $29 million a year deal, you know, with $100 million guaranteed. So Roman and company got to dictate. It's kind of what we were talking about, you know, to try to stay healthy. Should have already been paid. Spanos doesn't want to pay. He thinks all can just play. I don't agree with that, Tim. I think it's just because history suggests that's not the case. Every elite player they've had, since they've moved to Los Angeles, every single elite player has gotten paid. Herbert, Bosa, and Derwin have all gotten paid. So to me, it's just, and they've all gotten paid in July for whatever reason. And, and I think the reason they didn't pay him last year is, remember, Slater's had some injury situations. And so I'm guessing for how important that position is, and that could be a two-way street. Slater could have been the guy that says, I don't want the 25 million. I'm willing to bet on myself because I think I can get the 30 million because I'm going to play at a high level and I Bleav my body's going to be fine. So remember, that's a two-way street. They may have they very well could have offered him, that, hey, Sewell got 28. You've had some injuries. You've missed a season. We'll give you 26. Here it is. And he could say, no, I'll bet on myself. I'm going to go out and get that extra, $20 million that I think I can get. And you know what? Good for him. So there's
I think that's the latter. I think that's what happened more than likely. That your agent would say, hey, 25, I'm not doing it. Let's just play this thing out. Because he Slater, the kind of player he is, he's going to get his. And the Chargers gambled, and he gambled on himself, and he won.
Yeah. Someone says I saw Najee is on the trade block. That I've not heard one blip of that, Joel. So I'm not sure where you saw that, but from the people I know around the team, that hasn't even been a mention. So let's see what else. Weak men get rear-ended. Beef Tallow Boy wants to say that to you, Lo. Is that a Lo Neal saying?
Weak men get rear-ended. I think he's been watching too much of this Diddy trial.
That's a different style. That's a different style.
You didn't see that coming, did you, Money?
No, I did not. I thought maybe it was a lowism, that it was a lowism, that you were coming up, someone not paying attention. It's kind of like you never turn your back on a wave. Next thing you know, never turn your back on low because you got to run your ass over. Rumor has it that both of you will be playing in the second annual Thule pickleball tournament this weekend. What is your team name?
Ooh.
You know what? Since your name is Glenn Gordo, it would be Gordo y Flaco. That's what it would be. Because God knows I'm coming out there clocking in at about 150 pounds. Good for Thule. I didn't know that he was doing that. It was interesting. You know what? To build on that, Lo, Thule, it was because, we're projecting him to be that starting defensive end opposite Khalil, but he was out there running special teams with a Lowy with Ficken. So that's going to be an interesting one. And we're supposed to catch up with Coach Ficken tomorrow. So I'm anxious to kind of get with him and talk to him about how that works. When Thule's core four guy played over 700 snaps last year. And what do you do now that Bose is gone and Thule's that starting edge? Can you afford to lose him and, drop Kennard in there, who they drafted in the 4th round or something?
Yeah, he's going to be off those special teams. He might still play sparingly, but you got to have this guy fresh. You know the kind of defense that they want to play and what Jesse Mentor want to do and get after people and dial it up. So you went out in the draft and you had a good draft. You went out and got some skilled players. You went out and got some special team players. You understand, and guys on the team. And I trust me, they're in that linebacker meeting. They're in that meeting saying, "Hey, somebody's got to step up," and they're in the special teams. Hey, this guy's going to be started. You want to make this team? Here's a spot. It's pretty much a spot that's opened up on this team. So you're gonna have some guys even fighting for that even more. So, but you can't. You just don't want to have your starter out there on every single special teams. He still can play some maybe for the love of it as a backup, but you got to have this guy humming on defense.
Yeah, I think that's. And again, I feel bad for Coach because he's a great special teams coach. And he lost Chris Rumpf, and I know he didn't play last year because he was hurt, but he was the defensive end that he had playing special teams. He lost Nick Neiman, his best special teams player. They brought back Troy Dye, so that's a big one for him. You got Dan Henley, who's now playing every snap on defense and is off a special. So you're gutting his crew, and he's like, "Come on, man, help me out here." Scott Matlock was out there playing special teams. Thule was out there, so. That's what a lot of these guys that they drafted, Mickens and Bridges and Kennard, these are all special. These are the replacements for those guys to get out there. And it'll be interesting because Thule's a hell of a special teams player. And you know it well, though. I mean, you made some bones on special teams. Like there are three phases. It is not a cliche. There's a reason why they say it's offense, defense, and special teams.
No question. And that's what that game, you see special teams, how many times in a year a special teams play will win a game, a strip fumble, a kickoff return, a punt block. Special teams is very, very critical. Field position. I think it's huge. So guys understand that. And I think that Harbaugh, just how he's built, he's going to make sure the emphasis is going to give coach plenty of time for special teams to get his guys caught up to speed, because you have to, just like we would say, hey, go out there and then all of a sudden he's put a guy, okay, I need this. We need a return. We need field position. And if you haven't put the time in, you can't ask. And that's what Harbaugh, you watch when special teams, it's whole practices now. The whole entire practice is dedicated to special teams because coaches and staff know how important that is now.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's a reason why Ficken stuck around, right? It was the one coach that Harbaugh kept because he knows how important, and his son's a special teams coach, so he doesn't bring Jay with him. Right. Jay ends up going to the Seahawks after they leave Michigan because that's how good Ficken is and how important Coach Harbaugh knows special teams happens to be, and he did not want to lose the guy. Speaking of coaches, Coach Klink, Steve Clinkscale talked to us yesterday. We got the defensive back, so Tony Jefferson, who's just one of my absolute favorite people anywhere. Such a thoughtful, just great guy to talk with and get into. And man, you want to talk about singing the praises. Called Jesse Minter a genius. I asked him why. I was like, why is he a genius? And he just got deep into it. He's like, he goes, when he was in Baltimore, just working defensive backs way back when he was just kind of getting into it, he goes, that was my guy. I'd go to him and he would make sense of everything that I couldn't make sense of. And then Herbert's basically changed his life. He's like, look, without Herbert, I'm not standing here. Because, Tony was scouting for the Ravens for a year,
right?
The year off, and came out to camp and kind of walked us through his story of how he knew he probably wasn't making the team, and he's out there playing in that third and final preseason against Dallas, and he's balling, and all these young guys are like, "What's up with you, Unk? Come on, man!" And he's like, "I'm trying to make this team." And so he said, but he said since he's been with Herbert that his body is completely changed. He's totally back into football, and he's never felt better. And it's going to be tough. They drafted two dudes. They drafted Mickens, and they drafted another corner. And you know how Coach Minter and Coach Clinkscale are. They don't care if it says CB next to your name. You're DB. You're playing free safety, box safety, nickel, dime, outside, slot. They want you to be versatile. And that's been a common theme from Coach Minter to Coach Klink. Last year, Coach O'Leary, the safeties coach, it's like, we just want the best 5 guys on the field. If we're in nickel, we want the best. If we're in dime, we want the best 10 guys. We don't care what designation you are. Just give me. So they're cross-training these guys to play safety and to play nickel and to play slot and to play outside, all that. So it's going to be, he was even asked, what's the competition like? And he was just like, ooh, there's going to be some competition out there now, and that goes into our special teams conversation too, about how some of these guys are going to be more valuable because they're going to be able to provide you depth and special teams. Where was I going with this? Jefferson, Coach Klink. What was he saying about I don't remember what I was saying. I think
I think most of it just talking about the depth, and here was the guy that was you're listening to his story, talking about the defense, the back end, and his story. Hey, this guy was in Baltimore, was thinking about it's over, and then the third preseason game, he's still out there. And how does he make this team? Because you're talking about just attention to detail and how smart this guy is. That was probably past saying, okay, this guy's getting retired, but because of his health and because of his commitment, and someone didn't step up, here he is, still in another year.
Yeah, I think it just speaks to how good our coaching staff is here. That's regularly overlooked. Especially on that defensive side, man, when you got Elston and Bowman and Klink and Minter running the whole show, and now Fuller is back there. Like, man, and I know I'm leaving some people out, and I apologize, but it's a heck of a coaching staff. And then just to kind of finish up, that's what it was. Tarheeb talked to us, Cam Hart talked to us along with Tony. Cam said that, he'll be ready, that he'll probably be ready by mandatory mini to go with that shoulder. And that, he's just all about trying to figure out a way to stay healthy. And that's what Coach Cleanscale said as well. He's like, it's a young, how do you coach durability? Make sure they're doing the stuff that, they should be when they're not here. That they're doing everything they can to work their body into a position where they don't get hurt, or they don't, because I think this is now the third surgery he's had on his shoulder, college and the pros. Because look, Cam's a hell of a player, man. There's a reason why he slipped to the 5th round, and it was injury concerns. But when you see him, he's a big dude. He's a big corner that's athletic, that can play press man, that sees it, that closes, that can find the ball. He's got it all. It's just he's got to stay out there. 2 concussions last year and a shoulder. So that's something they got to figure out. And he said Tarheeb, he thinks, is going to take a big step. And that's saying something, considering how well he played last year. So, and I don't think that's just, talking his guys up. I think he believes, like, hey, I know for a fact we got one guy that's locked in there, and that's Tarheeb. And he could play inside when Derwin's not playing big nickel, and he could play outside when Derwin is. So that's a good one. You want to do some more of these? Let's see. What about Money Low? Awesome sauce. Thank you, Blaine. Slater, we did that one already. Meeting LO, starstruck. Wish I would have said more to him. Don't know where Xavier Maldonado met you, Low, but sounds like you were a nice guy.
Yeah. Well, you should have said hello. You should have said more. We could have hung out. Could have brought me lunch. I could have took you down to the big L town, Lemoore, and we could have hung out on the forum.
Are you right by Lemoore?
Yeah, I'm like 30 minutes from Lemoore. I still got the houses down there. I hang out in the big L town all the time, brother.
I gotta get Low to freaking get me in with Slater, dude, into the wave pool.
Breezy comes out here to. Oh yeah, you want to come? You want me to hook you up?
Yes. You know how much it is to serve that thing?
You know what, Money? I haven't seen you smile this much. Oh my! You said
like, Lemoore? Wait a minute.
I was thinking, why are you excited? And I forgot we have the water park. I'm friggin'. My house is 3 minutes from there, where I was born. Yeah, but yeah, I can get you hooked if you want it. Seriously, it's usually like 5. These guys pay $30,000 a day.
10 grand, dude.
They all put it in a group. Yeah, but it's like, but I got you that money. You tell me you're serious and you want me to make it happen. Money. If I tell you a duck to pull a truck, you might as well shut up and hook him up. It's Lemoore, baby. This is my town. I got you, baby.
All right, there we go. Yeah, is this serious enough? Here we go.
I'll get you.
Let's see. There was the pickle. Oh, Rocket Sanders. Yes, saw Rocket Sanders. I know you watched some film of him. Low running back out of South Carolina, the undrafted free agent. Joe Ortiz said he was a draftable player for them. And when Joe Ortiz says that, understand it doesn't mean like he's draftable at 229. Most teams, their boards of draftable players doesn't go beyond 150. A lot of teams are 100. They're not putting, they're kind of gauging where they think these guys are going to be drafted, and that's like a top 150. So Sanders, when he says he was a draftable player for us, that means he was like in their top 150 of guys that they wanted. And when 230 whatever picks pass and he's not taken, that was a priority free agent for them. So that leads me to think that they are very serious about him, and that 4th running back spot is going to be, that's going to be a street fight, with Kamani Vidal, the 6th round pick last year, because I think the top 3 are locked. I think Haskins is just way too good of a special teams player and a third down back and a pass protector And then obviously your number 1 and 2, or 1 and 1A, if you want to call it, Hampton and Najee are locked in there as well. So that fourth running back spot's going to be tight. Just kind of your thoughts on Rocket and another 6 foot, 230-pound guy that they put on this roster.
I'll tell you what, Rocket understand. It's going to be interesting because I'm under the impression when you have a guy like that didn't get drafted, but now he's here. It's easy to look in the room and look around and say, okay, Najee, okay, 1-year deal. Okay, you know that this guy's probably on a 1-year deal, okay, but you went out and you got Hampton. You said, okay, I already have a guy that I've got to put in that place. So this young man, the Rocket's saying, I'm going to be 2. I know that and he believes he should be a 1. When you see the kind of weight, how big he is and the way he runs, he's like, man, he's just a 1. He's explosive, and he thought he should have been drafted. It was so. He's in a situation. I think that he's going to get some burn. You know that in preseason, you will see this guy make some plays. You will see him. He's just that type of talent, and so he's looking at this thing saying, "Okay, I have an opportunity to make this my home." Because when you talking about 1 and 2, there's not a lot of difference. Because you look at backs in the league. You got to have a 2-headed monster. If you're the 2, you're going to get 8 to 10 carries a game if things are rolling. So you have to stay ready. And I think the Rocket's going to be that type of guy. Not saying necessarily this year, but he's going to get some burn. They are not going to cut this guy if he's what we think he is. And what I've seen, you don't cut this guy and try to hide him, put him on development, because someone's going to get him. Someone's going to get him. This guy, I think, is going to make this team.
Yeah, that's what goes into it too. You know, I think that people there's a calculus there of, okay, if we stash Sanders, or if we try to get Sanders through, or if we try to get Vidal through, who's more likely to make it to our practice squad? And I think both of them probably have a pretty good shot at getting claimed. I think, while Kamani might have struggled in pass pro last year, and size might have been a little bit of an issue, he's explosive. Dude's got juice, and he can catch the ball, and he can run those wheel routes, and he's effective as a receiver. So I think it's just kind of, it's just going to be a competition. All right, go through. Low Neal, Pro Football Hall of Fame, completely agree. And we're going to be out there for the Hall of Fame game, and I'm going to kick in some doors, and I'm going to rattle some skulls.
Thank you, baby. Thank you, money. I know I'm not tripping. I got the money on my team, the money train, baby.
That's exactly right. That's what first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to say, where's the curator? How you doing, sir? It's wonderful to meet you. Pleased to be here in Canton for the 3rd time. Where's the Low Neal? Where's the Lorenzo Neal bust?
Exactly.
I'm a big fan of fullbacks. Would like to find, I like to find the most dominant players of their era. So, when we talk about position by position, where do I find the most dominant fullback of his era? Where would I go? Excuse me? It's not, there's what? Nothing. It's not here. Can you make what?
What? I love it, money.
What?
Hey, money. Every time I see this guy, every time I see him, I go to Hall of Fame or whatever. He's got the biggest head, and I got a big head.
Yeah,
he's got a big old melon.
He's not there anymore. He retired.
He retired the big, big dome. I called him Big Dome. I would look up at that dome, and I'm like, oh my! And I would say, man, I think your head's bigger than mine. Yeah, and I got a big melon.
Yes, you do, and I have a tiny one. Yes, you do, and I'm jealous of it. I have a tiny head. No, that dude. When I was doing I think I was at the Super Bowl in Houston, if I remember right, and he came onto the set, and we were chatting with him. And when he shook my hand, and I don't have time, do I have big hands? No, but I don't have tiny hands.
Yeah.
His mitt came up to let me see if I can get it on camera. It came up to here. And the only other time that's ever happened to me was Lennox Lewis. When I met Lennox for the first time, and I was like, oh, now I get it. This guy's got he's got 2 boulders on the ends of his hands that he's pounding these people with. Now I understand why that dude just is content to stand there and just pop, 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 because instead of that, it feels like
right. A hammer.
Yeah,
a hammer.
Exactly. Okay, let's see what we got here. Jasir Taylor going to get a whole bunch of playing time now. By how the roster looks, that's a great. So I'm glad, Angel, that you brought that up, because specifically asked Coach Cleanscale about that, and I think it's important because Ja took a lot of incoming last year. He did not play well. Dude had a gnarly injury that he fought through, and Coach Cleanscale said, "Look," he goes, and they never want to disconnect because they don't want to disclose it. I'm not going to disclose it here, but he looked over at Josh and he's like, "Do they know?" And Josh just kind of shook his head. He's like, "Listen, man, Ja's one of the toughest guys I've ever been around. What that guy played through last year, and was willing to give us whatever he had. And even though, it wasn't what he wanted, it goes a long way. And he said he looks better this OTA than he did last year healthy in the OTA, and that he's very excited about. And that's a big one, because I think when you talk about that slot corner, especially because he's a core force special teams guy, and you talk about that slot corner, important to have someone that can back up there,
right.
And in case they want to play, Derwin is that box safety, and have, or play him up high, if depending on what the terms, what the terms are dictated. So just to share with you, in case you missed that from Coach, that's what he said about Ja. All right, here we go. I want to make sure I get through a lot of these, because people nice enough to join us. So let's get through. What do you Bleav the most important stretch of the schedule is for the Bolts to win?
While you're thinking about that, I think it's early. I think when you think about who you starting off with,
first 3 weeks are division opponents.
You win the division games, because you don't want them to come back and hunt you.
Yeah.
You know that money, the first 3. And by the way, I'm going to go out there. So you guys go to bet Bolts in Brazil. See, you know it's coming, money. I had to make that transition. You got the bet online.
BoltsInBrazil.com.
That's right. BoltsInBrazil.com. I'm going to be out there. DJ, leading tackler for the Kansas City Chiefs all time. He's going out there with Kansas City. Remember Dennis Johnson, great linebacker. So he's going to be there. Kansas City Chiefs going to be. We're going to go and have a great time. All you got to go is Bolts in Brazil. Get your tickets, your airfare. Everything's included in this. It's going to be a phenomenal time. Tailgate. We're going to have a great time. But yeah, as I digress, it is those 3 games. You know what Denver went out and did. They got better. Yeah, the Raiders got a little bit better too. And the Kansas City Chiefs, it's still the team that's been to 3-4 Super Bowls back to back. We have to be ready for those 3 games, because you lose one of those, that usually counts as a game and a half.
That's a great one. And it's funny. It's the exact opposite of what I was thinking, but I think I agree with you. I was going to say that end stretch, because I do think they're going to have a good record coming into the final quarter of the season. When you come out of that bye week 12, I want to say it's Raiders, Eagles, Chiefs, Texans.
The gauntlet.
I think that's what it is. I think the final 4 are Raiders, Eagles, Chiefs, Texans, I think is what we're looking at. I mean, it wouldn't be hard for me just to click on this. Jeez, come on, Matt. Because I feel like I'm leaving one out. Cowboys. Yeah, so I think that's when you come out of the bye and you're talking about, those final 6 games. So I'll even just go the final 4 games: Kansas City, Dallas, Houston, Denver, because I think you're in play. If we think this team's as good as we think it is, like I said, I think you're in play for the division, and you're taking on the defending AFC champs, a Dallas team that not sure about, but they're freaking talented. It's Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and and all them dudes. So, and then you got Houston, a team that throttled you in the wild card a year ago, and then you got a Denver team that was also in the playoffs. So, like, to me, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's those first 3 weeks. You can't get out of there at 1-2. You got to get out of there. Absolute worst case scenario at 2-1, and you hope to be 3-0, because 2 of them are home games. It's the Denver and Kansas City that counts as the home game, and then you're at Raiders Monday night, new team. Take advantage of that. So I'm with you. All right, here we go. Already did that. Thule's gonna have those giving year lowism. Do you guys Bleav this is the year the Chargers make a big playoff push? Yeah. Hope Kennard takes over Thule's special team reps. I think that's the idea. Coach Ficken likes to always have a defensive end in there. JR looks like he bulked up. Any other standouts in that regard? JR. Who am I missing? Because we got Justin Aboigbe. That's JE. JR, is that just
who's
here?
JR,
no.
buddy? Type in there. Who's your JR? Did you go?
Well, let me go to the last name Reynolds or last name R.
They'll tell you.
No.
They'll tell you in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, Jalen Rager, maybe. I think it's going to be tough for Jalen, just because they drafted 2 guys and you signed Mike Williams, and then you've got Lad Quinton and Darius. So I think Rager's going to have a little bit of a tough go, but I think you can probably put him on the practice squad and call him up if you need him. I don't think anybody would take him. Touchback 35-yard line now. Get it out of the end zone or let him return it. That's a great question, because I thought Lo, I thought when it was moved to the 30 that they wouldn't, and they just booted
Right.
them all out of the end zone. It's
Yeah.
like, whatever, man. Just take it. We're good with that. So I don't know. I'd like to think so, and I think Cam is good enough to drop that thing wherever they want. Based on what you're seeing from Omarion Hampton, do you think we're going to see Hampton a lot in the passing game? Well, based on the routes I saw him running yesterday, absolutely.
Yeah. How was it yesterday?
He looks good, man.
He looked good.
Smooth, explosive, in and out of breaks. It's impressive because you can just see it. You know what I mean? When you're
right.
When you're standing, I had a nice little bird's eye view. I was doing my radio show and they let me do it from the balcony. So I had a real nice angle to see everything, man. And you can just see it. He's explosive. Trey Harris was tracking the ball really well. You could see that. Ladd made the catch of the day. Ladd's freaking crazy. He's just crazy. He's so good, man. He is so sudden.
And he knows now. Ladd is coming. That you seen, he knows, right? He knows that he's the guy. He knows.
Exactly. I'm excited for a healthy, in shape Tony Jefferson. Me too. One of my favorite guys. What's a year 2 Jim Harbaugh coach like? We know the stories year 1. What's he like in year 2? I mean, Lo, you've been on the field with Coach. You've been around Coach when he was with the 49ers. I've been around him at Stanford and here. I mean, he's who he is. Harbaugh is Harbaugh, man.
He's consistent. It ain't nothing he's going to change. These young guys are going to be. Reason why he stays consistent is because it's the trickle down effect. He's already instilled those guys that he had last year. They're going to pass it down. It's a way you do things. You practice like a champion. You practice like a pro. When I was with John, in Baltimore, just the way that look, we're going to have skin like an Amendola. He wants tough guys. They want tough guys. That's what the Harbaugh's about. It's about, you got to know X's and O's. Yes, you got to be on, but it's just the tough, gritty guys. That's what they want. So your team is going to be a little more callous. It's going to be a little bit more hard because you have a whole year. This team is different. You've grown.
Yeah, I think the key there is coordinator stayed. So you've got a second year, and I think for all the people that were sending incoming in Greg Roman's direction, it's just not fair. I know you may think I'm making excuses, but you think about the running game wasn't effective. You had an interior of the line not effective. You had go through the wide receiver ranks. I mean, if Ladd McConkey doesn't have an incredible rookie season, what do we? You don't really have a dedicated pass catching tight end. Like, the guy was playing with one hand tied behind his back. I'm excited to see Greg Roman with Najee Harris, Omarion Hampton, Mekhi Becton, Joe Alt on that right side of the line. Before they could only run left, they couldn't run right, and then they shouldn't run right for whatever reason. It just was not working. Now I think that's going to be opened up. You've got a legitimate pass-catching tight end in Tyler Conklin, who's got phenomenal hands, is much more athletic than anything they had last year. They draft Gadsden. You get a legitimate X-receiver in Mike Williams, who looked great. It was fun to see him and Herbert connected on some deep balls. Now Ladd can settle into that slot, and you're going to have a battle for the Z, man. You're going to have a hell of a battle for that flanker role with Q and with Trey Harris and with Keandre Lambert-Smith. And Ladd's going to be able to play out there, and you can drop one of these guys in the slot. It's a completely different looking team. And to have the same offense for Herbert to be able to operate out of with just upgrades across the board, I'm really excited to see what that looks like.
Also, my money, and I think that what people are not realizing, is this team going to be better? It's going to be better just because you went out, like you said, and you finally have a tight end that's going to be able to catch. No disrespect to this, but he's just a great blocking tight end. Yeah. You didn't have anyone to stretch the field, didn't have a lot of different things. You have to realize now, when you played against the Texans, when you knew that your running game was not there, non-void, you're like, okay, how are we going to match someone? How can we score? How can we keep up? You didn't have really a go-to receiver except McConkey that showed you consistency, and you depended on a rookie to carry your receivers. You're in a situation now that that point now is going to be 4 or 5. They're going to score at least 3 or 4 more points per game easy than they did last year. You didn't have that. You could not run the ball with consistency, any type of consistency. One game you could, next game your backs are down. You have a whole this is going to be a different now. The rest of the league got better too. Not saying now they're just going to have go on a run. I'm just telling you right now, offensive power you're going to see a completely different capability of offense, no question.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. Does Roman need a mobile quarterback for a scheme to work? It has, you think about what he did at Stanford with Andrew Luck, what he did in San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith, what he did in Baltimore, obviously with Lamar Jackson. I mean, so certainly he likes having a quarterback that can run around. I don't think, the one thing that coach has done, I mean, think about those three places I just rattled off, right? Vernon Davis was a bust until Roman and Harbaugh got there, and then he became one of the best tight ends in the league. Look at all those tight ends that he got out of Stanford, Toilolo, Kobe Fleener, all those dudes. And then look at what he did with Mark Andrews at Baltimore. Like, that dude needs a seam-stretching, pass-catching tight end to really unlock, his offenses. And just didn't have that last year. So I think having that, and not to mention, just think of the big backs, Toby Gerhardt at Stanford, Frank Gore at San Francisco, and then just go through all the backs he had at Baltimore, those big ass backs. And now he's got it. Like, he's got some of those things that have kind of been able to unlock his offense, along with a quarterback that can run every now and then. Do I think Najee could be on the trade block? I don't think so. I don't think it'd be worth, because it's such a position of attrition. It's not like whatever you're going to get. No one's going to send you a first or a second or a third round pick for Najee. But the guy hasn't even taken a snap yet. I mean, I understand that people are excited about new, and that Najee doesn't have a lot of, super splashy plays, but that's not what he does. He's like, I'm going to beat you into submission, and ultimately you're going to break. And he can be the body blows, and Hampton can be the haymaker.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. And no, stop with, is he going to get traded? Does he want to? It's no way they let him go. You need he's a veteran seasoned guy. To Hampton gets his legs underneath him. Yeah, Hampton might at the end of the year get a little bit more burn. But you got to realize who brought him in there. Think about why he's there. Harbaugh played in this league. He's not going to go out and give this guy this type of money and tell him, hey, now we're not going to play you. He wouldn't do it. There's a certain code in football, especially when you go out and you say, look, I'm going to get a guy that was a starter. You just wouldn't do that. Even if Mario's a little better and maybe a little faster and all those things, maybe. But Harbaugh is not going to do Najee that way. This organization wouldn't do a veteran type of guy that way. You brought him there. You were going to give him plenty of opportunities to fail and to have success.
Now, what I would say, there is a caveat there, and it's if it's a two-way street. If Najee's looking around like, man, Hampton's going to be getting, I got all these incentives, and I'm trying to make my $9 million, and it's clear that Hampton's got that juice, and that he's going to be getting the majority of these carries, and he's a guy that, never missed a game, barely missed any snaps in college. He could, that could be I see where this is going, guys. So I get it. You didn't think he'd be available at 21, or you weren't anticipating that being a reality in the draft, and it was, and I totally understand. But
he's a veteran.
So that's the way that could line up, is if Hampton is clearly showing that he's going to be a bell cow and Najee is going to be, the spice, then he may say, hey, if there's something out there, I'm good. Feel free to find it so I can go out and be a one and get my 200 plus carries and kind of keep my streak going and get my 4 yards per carry somewhere else. That would be the only way. Just, I never like doing the whole close the door on everything. So, here we go. Notable observations on Gaskin. Not in the OTAs. He's a big guy, and he was just out there working, looked like he could move. 2 weeks ago, I met Lowe at the Visalia Theater. Just finished putting butter on my popcorn, started walking, and there was the legend. If you want to remember, in place where Xavier was.
Yeah, we took a picture with. There he goes. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. New wide receivers. Who do you think will have a big year? QJ, Quentin, or Trey Harris? I think they're both going to be in a battle. I think that's up for grabs. This isn't a team that drafted Q. What does Coach always say? Competitors welcome. They drafted Trey. They said they didn't think he was going to be there, that they could not have run that card up quicker in the second round. So clearly he's a player that they had a lot of affection for. So, yeah, I think that's going to be right. I mean, that's kind of the way I would read it, though.
Of course, you have to read it that way. They ran that card up there. They're like, we're going to bring this guy. They went out. You had to get better at receiver. Let's be. And they went out and you brought back in Mike. So you're saying, look, we have to compete. Last year, there was inconsistency at the receiver position. You depended on a rookie, and he stepped up and played huge. And it's not that Q didn't make strides. Q made huge strides. He ran the ball better, caught the ball better. He still made strides, but you had to get better. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. My goodness, you're trying to compete with Kansas City. You understand what Denver did. You went out and you said, we're going to go get more athletic guys. We're going to go out and create competition. That's what the league's about. Okay, we went out and we got Najee. Okay, we got Najee, guy who's been starting with the Steelers, a guy who's shown that he can run the ball. But what did we go out and do? We went out and got Hampton. Why? Because we want to get better. That's what football's about, and that's the NFL. You are going to always push it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's the one thing, and I'm just kind of going through the comments, and the one thing that a lot of people are asking about, look, I think depth is kind of the key. People asking about Deshaun Hands and Naquan Jones. That's depth, man. You know, that's hopefully it's Caldwell and it's Tier and it's a Boygby and it's Tito. But now you've got, like, think about how deep that room is now. Like before, a guy would go down and he'd be like, oh man, they got to go find somebody out there and pull off Hinton off the practice squad and he's got to get plugged in there. Like now it's like, yeah, we're good. We're good. You know, that could they use, I think it depends on what a Boygby looks like and what Tier looks like, and more of a full-time role as an upfield, get up the field, pass rushing, collapse the pocket, defensive tackle. But I feel those guys all, look, it's a deep room now, man, and you're feeling pretty darn good if a corner goes down, if an interior lineman goes down. Edge might be the one, and I saw somebody said, do you think they could go out and get an edge? I think when you're talking about edge with Kennard and Thule and Bud and Khalil, maybe there's that fifth edge that just because of the age of Bud and Khalil and the rookie nature of Kennard, like maybe that's one. Special teams, one of the best in the league. Chris Gould, yeah, love Chris. I shouldn't say Gould, it's Chris Gould. Some interviews to be a special teams coordinator at some point. I agree. Yeah, Chris is great. Chris and Ryan are the dynamic duo, man, and I'm sure he'll get he'll get it. Chris will get it. He's really good. He's always out. Lo, you've been out on the field. You know how good Chris is and how hard he works with those guys.
Right.
Let's just get through these because we're going to get out of here. It's been an hour. Keandre Lambert-Smith have a big impact. Joel, I think that's what we're talking about. It's going to be a gnarly wide receiver room. Big impact would suggest that somebody got hurt, because I think when you're talking about a team that doesn't play a lot of 11, it's usually two receivers out there, and you're talking about Mike and Ladd, or if it's three, it's Mike, Ladd, and Q. And then you've got Trey. And now if you're talking about a big impact for KLS, that would lead me to think that somebody got hurt. And that's how he's working his way in there, right? I mean, I think he can jump up and earn it? Sure. But, they don't play a lot of three receiver sets. These are, they're running 22, they're running 12, they're running 21. Like that's what they're doing.
Would it surprise you? Would it surprise you with the emergence of Mario, if he plays like you and I think he can? Would it surprise you if they go four wides to try to put 4 and 5 DBs on the field to spread it out, to give this young man some running lanes, because of the way that he can run and the speed and open field, spread them out and now make these corners and safeties tackling?
I love that you said that, though. I love that you said that. It's one thing that has driven me so crazy the last few years. And, is the idea that this team, and it didn't happen last year, it was prior to that. Like in short yardage situations, they were so bad, and they would pack it in. And it's like, we've seen this movie, man. This old line is not getting pushed. Spread them out. And let Austin never goes down on first contact. And I would just say, why are we not spreading this thing out? And you're just giving the ball to Austin. He's going to make the first man miss and pick up the half yard. Like, it's just, it never made sense to me. Instead, they would always pack it in, and here's 2 tight ends and a 6th offensive lineman, and they got
bringing more people to the party. You're bringing more people into the party for a half yard. I think you spread them out, go 4 or 5 receivers, and say, okay, let's pick your poison.
Hey, you just said it, Lo. 5 receivers and a direct snap. That's it. Herbert, get in the slot. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Take him off the field.
That's right. Let me see if I can get through some of these real quick. We're going to wrap these up. Prince Bud, RIP to my dad, who was a Gates fan, no doubt. Going to be an exciting weekend out there. We're playing Hall of Fame game on the 31st, and then the 2nd, Gatesy will be inducted. That'll be darn exciting. Low will be out there. Right?
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely, of course. When Gatesy's super close. Thank you. Appreciate that. 100 days to the Chiefs game. Exactly. Thanks for reading my questions. Draft looking great. Undrafted free agent, Shannon Daly. Shannon, I would say Sanders. I think, Klotz is an interesting one at fullback because how you can stash a fullback and no one's going to be claiming them. Nobody's playing football the way the Chargers are, but I think Sanders is probably the one if I had to put if I had to hang a hat on it. Yeah, I think we're good, man. I think we're good.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, appreciate it one more time. BoltsandBrazil.com. If you want to make your way out to Brazil, Lowe's got the package going and you're rolling with him, which means anybody tries to snatch your hip sack, he's going to snap them in half. There you go.
Money, I'm gonna get you. We're gonna probably do our show out there, Money. Hey, I'll be out there all week,
absolutely.
So maybe we'll hook up. I'm gonna give you some big money. I'm gonna give you the big money. I got you. You're my guy.
Do the show next week from Lemore's where we're doing the show.
I got to get you set up out there. Boy, that was crazy that you're like, oh, you're Lamore, and you just changed. I was like, why is he so excited? And I was like, the surf. I was like, the
Slater pool, man.
Park. Oh my God.
The Slater pool. All right, man. Appreciate you, Lo.
Cheers, guys.
Appreciate all of you people for popping in to the YouTube live. We'll be back again next week. More from the OTAs. Hopefully that wasn't too meandering. I know I get a little distracted when all this stuff happens. So, all right, bolt up.
Bolt up.